Soon afterwards, he went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went with him. As he approached the gate of the town, a man who had died was being carried out. He was his mother's only son, and she was a widow, and with her was a large crowd from the town. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion for her, and said to her, "Do not weep." Then he came forward and touched the bier, and the bearers stood still. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, rise." The dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. Fear seized all of them, and they glorified God, saying, "A great prophet has risen among us, and God has looked favorably on his people." This word about him spread throughout Judea and all the surrounding country. So last weekend was a very rough weekend when it comes to violence. In Chicago, we're up 72% for shootings from this point last year. Thankfully, all of this stuff happens on the west side and south side, so all of us up in the north don't have to worry about that kind of thing. Unless, of course, you've been following the news lately and realize that that's not the case anymore. For example, the young man who was shot and killed 5 blocks from here, or the 25-year-old man who was found dead 4 blocks north of here, in the 6400 block of Rockwell, found dead between 2 houses. Or there was Robert, who was gunned down on last Tuesday night in front of the liquor store at Sacramento and Devon, and so on and so forth. Those of you who live in the neighborhood know that it's not just their problem anymore. It's become everybody's problem. A lot of people who were made widows, a lot of people were made childless parents this past weekend, and it just keeps on going and keeps on going. Well, for some reason, crime is going down in New York. Here in Chicago, it just keeps on going up. And here we are perplexed. Why does this keep happening? Why are people so angry that they feel they need to be shooting and killing each other? It doesn't make any sense to us whatsoever. When we think about widows, we think about, for example, first the widow of Sidon. The widow of Sidon was a woman living in this area of Zarephath, and Elijah was sent by God to go to this area. Ironically, he was running from Jezebel, who had lost her marbles, and Ahab was the king. He marries Jezebel, loses favor with God, brings in her gods, the Baal, and starts setting up these places of worship with these foreign gods. And so Elijah says, okay, as long as you're going to do this, there's going to be a drought in the land. Get used to it. That's the way things are going to be around here. He's running from Jezebel because he had killed off 350 or more, I can't remember the number, of her priests. And so she was chasing him down to kill him. And so God sends him out. Ironically, to Sidon, where Jezebel is from. So it goes back to Jezebel's homeland to hide from her. He comes upon this widow who is preparing the Last Supper for herself and her child. All they've got is a little bit of meal left to eat. And he says, give me some water and give me some food. And she says, I would love to, but I've only got enough left that my son and I are going to eat this and die. And maybe it's my sick, snarky humor, but when Elijah says, go ahead and do what you said you're going to do, but before you croak, give me some food. Sorry, I just read it that way. Maybe that's not what it meant. But it probably was. Probably was. Because Elijah was telling her, go ahead and do what you think is going to happen, but it's not going to work out that way because God is going to take care of you, and God has sent me to take care of you. God has sent me to watch over you and to make sure that you are okay and to have compassion for you. But for some reason, her son ends up dying anyway. We don't know if he fell ill. We don't know if he starved. We don't know what happened. He dies anyway. And she says, oh, Mr. Prophet, you come here speaking the name of your God, and my son is dead anyway. What kind of God do you have? And Elijah starts to wonder himself. What kind of God do I have? And starts crying out to God, why is it you sent me to this woman supposedly to help her? And for her to help me, but you've taken her son from her. That's all she had. She has no husband. She has no other children. The only person she had in her life, you have just taken from her. Why? So he goes up, carries him up to his room, lays on him 3 times, and tells him to get up, and he does. The widow still has her son. And then there's Jesus walking along through this area apparently called Nain. And he comes across this funeral procession. A young dead man on the bier being carried along. And the pallbearers stop when Jesus says, wait. Because he sees the widow who has only this young man in her life, nobody else. And he has compassion for her. And he says, young man, I say to you, rise up. And he gets up. But the thing that catches me that I kind of wonder about in these passages is, for one, Jesus has compassion. Elijah has compassion. It's the compassion that raises the dead. But I also notice that it's compassion for the one left behind. Never does it say that there is compassion for the dead. Because maybe the dead aren't so bad off. They don't know they're dead. Or maybe they do. That's another theological discussion. But we never hear except with the story of Jesus and Lazarus, where there's pity for the person who's dead. Jesus wept when Lazarus died because he had a relationship with him. Right? That was Mary's brother. They knew each other. But outside of that, it's always compassion for the person who's left behind. And even though Jesus wept for Lazarus, he tells this woman, do not weep. Stop crying. There's nothing to be sad about. I got this. So we have to have compassion on those who have been left behind in all of these senseless acts and all of these ridiculous killings over turf wars. Greenbrier Park, 2 weeks ago, young man out there flashing gang signs, cops pulled up and said, knock it off. So he pulls a gun, starts shooting up the cop car. 2 weeks ago, Greenbrier Park, where my kids play. Okay? All these senseless acts, but people are left behind in the crossfire, and we are called to have compassion and love for them. But what about the children before they're gone? What about the children who are still alive, whose lives we can still save by having love and compassion for them? What about Robert? Let's look at this story, the mother, the widow who cries over her dead son, the only person she has in her life. Let's think about Robert, the young Assyrian man who was gunned down in front of the liquor store next to Dunkin' Donuts on Devon. 19 years old. When he was a young child, his mother left him and his sister 17. Went away, ran off with another guy, married him, I don't know, out of the picture. Dad didn't want to have anything to do with the kids. Maybe they reminded him of her. Maybe he just didn't feel equipped. Who knows? So he sends Robert and his sister off to Grandma. Grandma gets cancer. Grandma's ill. Grandma can't take care of Robert and his sister. Sends them back to Dad. Dad gets remarried. Stepmom hates the kids. I didn't ask for kids. Get out. Kicks the kids out. Back to Grandma. Grandma gets worse. Cancer gets her. She dies. Kids are on the street. Nobody wants them. Where do you go? Nobody's saying, hey, I love you, I got you, I'll take care of you. Where do they go? Latin kings are willing to take them in. Hey, you want to be a brother? I'll be a brother to you. You got lots of brothers right here. But here's what you got to do. And so he joins the Latin kings. And what did it get him? 4 or 6 bullets in the chest? Dead. Because somebody didn't step up and say, hey, I got you. Right? Somebody didn't say, okay, maybe your parents didn't have the sense to take care of you. Maybe they left you high and dry, but we're not going to do that to you. Nobody stepped up before those gangs got in there and said, we will take care of you. We will be your brothers and your sisters and your mothers and your fathers, and we will make sure that you are provided for. Because nobody did that. Because nobody did that. There are so many dead bodies on the streets of Chicago. It's needless. It's ridiculous. It's senseless. We talk about gun control and all these things, and I'm not even going into that. What's the root? Right? We can talk about hiring more police and doing all of this type of stuff to prevent things or really punish once it's too late. But how is that going to stop anything if we're not teaching these kids about love and about passion for one another and teaching them that that person you're about to cap is somebody's son? But we're not teaching them that. We're teaching them that they're low-life pieces of you-know-what. Stop flashing gang signs, you little punk. Stop causing trouble. Quit joining gangs and running around with your pants hanging down after your ankles. What's the matter with you? Get your head on straight. Instead, somebody needs to be grabbing them, hugging them, saying, hey, you're not alone in this. There are people out there who genuinely care for you. If we would do that, think of how many shootings, how many senseless acts of violence would be eradicated. Just because people feel loved. Just because, like Jesus did, just because, like Elijah did, we had passion. So did Robert's mom weep when she lost her son? I don't even know if she knows he's dead. Did his father weep? Who knows? But we do, because we know that these things are avoidable. We are taught by Jesus to love these kids while they're still here in our midst, still alive, still standing up, and we need to keep them from being dead, horizontal on the ground, standing up vertically, standing up tall, proud, and saying, I matter. And we need to instill that in them with our love, our respect, and our compassion. We got a lot of work to do, a lot of kids out there, but it starts here, and we can do it.